This is episode 33 of the Papa Tango Sierra Delta podcast. My name is Larry Payton, and I have been diagnosed with complex post-traumatic stress, also with dissociative symptoms and major depressive disorder. I just thought I'd mix things up this week and throw in the others. Hey everyone, thank you very much for tuning in once again. I'm going to do a very short introduction. The reason for that is because as I am recording this, I'm in a hurricane, Hurricane Lee, which is, I'm not sure if it's now post-tropical Cyclone Lee. It's Angry Lee, I can definitely tell you that. Wow, the trees have been bending quite a bit. So far, so good, and just keep my fingers crossed that it stays that way. The only thing I want to say today before I introduce you to Brady Hoffman, and it's a great episode. I mean, yeah, I know they always say they're good, and they are. So that's it. I'm always going to say they're great episodes because they're great episodes. Brady's awesome, and he'll talk to you about his journey, man, from things going fine to things not so going fine to suicidal ideations and how it is that he managed to get back to work and find growth again and find kind of hope again and find some aspiration and motivation again. Speaking about that, I also want to say thank you to everyone who's been sending messages out lately, especially referring to the episode called The End that I did with my wife. People have been fantastic, very, very supportive, which is super cool. I think it's very, very awesome. And one other thing I want to say is that a lot of messages have come as, I guess just people very happy for me, which is great. But also that they hope as well that they can find that they can manage to track down the light, that it's somewhere out there and they just hopefully can reach it. For what it's worth, that light is not out there. It's in there. And when I say in there, I mean it is in you. It is within you. It's locked. It's hidden. The only thing you have to do is find a way to crack the code. Now, it may seem like an enigma, but even the enigma got cracked. Just keep pushing on. Keep getting up every day. Keep looking for things that you should be focusing on that are positive. Push away things that are negative. Try to find something each day that's a light, a different light. Don't pick the same thing. Pick different things. Force yourself off the couch a bit. Force yourself to get out a little bit. Force yourself to start once again becoming comfortable with being uncomfortable. You will manage to find that code. It may take time. It may take a lot of time. But if you want it bad enough and you truly believe it's out there, then you will truly believe that it's actually in there, within you. Let's take a quick break.
This episode of the Papa Tango Sierra Delta podcast is brought to you thanks to the support and financial sponsorship of Cracked Armor. Go to crackedarmor.com, read the story, buy the gear, wear it, to send a message to others who are struggling that they're not alone.
Also, check out Willow Tree Farm, care of Jason Subkowicz, another member who is struggling with PTSD and who frequently updates his Instagram to share his story. You can follow him at jason.subkowicz. That's jason.Sierra Oscar Bravo Kilo Oscar Whiskey India Charlie Zulu.
We are back from the break. Thanks for sticking around for the Papa Tango Sierra Delta podcast. On today's episode, we have Staff Sergeant Brady Hoffman of the BC Sheriffs. Welcome to the show, Brady.
Thanks, Larry. It's a pleasure to be here after, obviously communicating with you. We've been trying to get this up and going, so it's good to get it finally going.
Absolutely, man. I'm quite excited for today's show. I know we've been speaking for a while. Busy man. That's it. It takes time to work things out, especially when I'm on the East Coast and you're on the West. If you could, please introduce yourself and tell us about your journey.
For sure. Like you mentioned, Brady Hoffman, Staff Sergeant, BC Sheriffs. Just coming into my 20th year with the Sheriffs. my journey is not much different than most. I'll go back to childhood. Childhood was a good childhood. Parents were together until I think I was 18 or 19 years old, but definitely supportive in all the sports, and I stayed quite active that way. Growing up, I was always not necessarily getting into trouble, but I was definitely the protector of my group. I was the one that always stood up, always the one that took on other things that weren't necessarily mine. I felt that role throughout my friendships, early in life. Like I
That
said,
no doubt made you into who you are now.
Oh yeah.
Right?
I got a few
that's
scarred
good.
knuckles to prove it.
That's good. I hear you, brother. I hear you, man. You got to take care of your brothers and sisters.
Yeah, and I don't know honestly where that came from. It wasn't instilled in me. It's just been a feeling I've had from a very young age to be a protector.
It's who you are, man. That is who you are.
I didn't quite really know what I wanted to get into. I was very close to joining the military. I was, like I said, on Vancouver Island, so I had to come to the mainland to obviously progress in a career. And I had a relative, my uncle, who was with the sheriffs for quite some time, and he kind of persuaded me in that direction a little bit. And I fell in love with it right away.
That's awesome, man. That's fantastic. Tell us about life in the BC Sheriffs.
Yeah, so, we're kind of an unheard of entity. A lot of people don't really know what we do or how we do it. Easiest way to describe it is we're a police force, let's say, a law enforcement agency that is bound by courts, let's say. So whereas, someone might work in the city of Surrey, that's their jurisdiction, whereas my jurisdiction is courthouse proper or judge's order, serving anything to do with serving papers or warrants or stuff like that. So you get to do the policing aspect of things, but I'm not doing the shift work. I'm not technically out on the road doing calls like that. So I like I said, I fell in love with it right away. I got an opportunity to travel all throughout BC, working small, rural, circuit court type things where, community might hold a court every 2 weeks for 3 days straight. And, everyone in that community gets rounded up for their court date.
Yeah, I remember those days back in Hannah. Yeah, I think we had it like once a month, but it's a crazy day. Yeah.
Yeah, it is a crazy day, and you learn how to do things a little bit different because you don't have the resources as you would back in your municipality. I might be there with just one RCMP member who's detached in a small adjacent community, might not even be that one. So while you're there for 3-4 days, you kind of are each other's partner, and you assist each other the best you can, and it really makes you think on your feet and get creative on how to do your job. I did that for a little bit there, and then opportunity to get into supervising right away. Like I said, about 18 months into my career, I was placed in a position of a little bit of authority and supervising. And in law enforcement, we know how that goes over with senior members, and quite a junior 23-year-old starts telling them how to do their job.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, that went over great, I'm sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely didn't make any friends for a couple of years. But I was just determined. I've been a captain of many sports teams, and I like the team atmosphere, and I like being the person, like I said, that can provide. And for me, supervising was that. I got to do frontline stuff, but I got to be there to provide and look after, my brothers and sisters. And, I took an opportunity and I ran with it, quite honestly. I was in an acting type role for about 6 or 7 years. Got posted to the Olympics. We were given some of us were given full police powers for the Olympics. So I worked right beside like Vancouver police officers. And after that, I won my posting in Richmond, British Columbia, another small little town or city in BC here. And that was when I became a sergeant in 2010. Again, just taking as much knowledge and courses and things I could do to build that portfolio. And then in 2015, I was successfully applicant for the staff sergeant in Surrey.
Nice. Congratulations, brother. That's awesome.
Thanks, man. Yeah, Surrey, just before the pandemic, Surrey Courthouse kind of took the unofficial busiest courthouse in Canada away from Toronto, just due to our demographics and growth in population. So, it was mayhem, and it still is kind of mayhem. Obviously, the pandemic has changed a lot of things and a lot of ways we do our job now. We don't necessarily do so much in-person stuff. A lot of it's by video. but we still have, mass amount of people coming through those doors a day to file whatever or defend or, testify. And, I like the aspect of that is like anything in our line of work, you don't know what your day's going to bring.
Absolutely. There's no doubt. There is no doubt about that, Brady. And I have no issue saying that. I remember when I worked again in Alberta down in Hannah, and there was two places I really disliked being. One of them was court, because it just seemed like there was, it was always just crazy. And there was like pretty much, people from anywhere in the area that were doing shit they shouldn't be doing were there all congregated in one place. The other place I really disliked, man, was Calgary Remand. Like, I just could not understand how it is that sheriffs or corrections could just do that all the time. There's no, I don't know. I find it tough enough sometimes that, we deal with a lot of bad people, let's just say.
Yeah.
People who have made some poor choices. And, but I do at times deal with good people, and every now and again someone's really nice. I wouldn't necessarily say you see that a whole lot.
No, you're 100% correct. A courthouse isn't a place of joy for the most part.
No.
We do have great interactions with members of society, and we get to work with victim services and assist people through that process of testifying, which is can be a very frightening and scary thing to do. And so we do see some compassion and some great interactions, but like you said, for the most part it's a negative work environment every single day,
and that has to leave some scars. I mean, let's be straight up. I mean, that has to leave its marks.
It does. And up until a couple of years ago, I probably would have told you no, it doesn't, and I'm fine and everything's good. Yeah. Right. And
right.
That's how we process that. But if there were cameras there for people to see what actually goes on behind the other side of, a courthouse, let's say the working side, it's alarming. It's disturbing. But it also becomes normal.
That's what's kind of wild. Yeah. I've been behind that area because, in some of the small areas, again, you wouldn't have sheriffs, or they were just nonstop transporting people from, the Pen and Drumheller and stuff like that. And, it's a different world. It becomes quite a different world, and it's crazy what becomes, I shouldn't say crazy, but it becomes what you accept as normal is actually abnormal, and it just becomes your norm, which is probably.
Yeah. And then, you try and relate that to people who don't work in our line of work or in our field, and they just give you the weirdest look, like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, what do you mean? This is normal.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, I guess tell us then, Brady, you had mentioned that up until 2 years ago, you would have said otherwise, that it didn't lead anywhere. I mean, tell us about the journey from, you get the staff sergeant's gig, you're at Surrey. It's a super busy courthouse. It knocked Toronto off as the busiest for a while. I mean, Surrey's a big spot, a busy spot. I know that. So something happens, I presume, or something catches up with you, and all of a sudden things change.
For sure. Yeah. And now looking back at it, I can go back and I can pick out, how many incidents do you want to talk about, right? And how that affected me in today's world. But the pandemic hit, and obviously that changed life for all of us. There was a good portion in there when it first hit. We didn't really know what that looked like. And, my two children stayed with their mom for about a month and a half, 2 months straight, just because we didn't know what my working environment looked like. We didn't understand it at that time. That took a major toll on me. And a lot of things just came up in that time. Self-admitted, I did have any coping mechanisms, and I went heavily more into the bottle, like a lot of us do. Yep.
Likewise. Guilty.
And, I don't have a problem in saying that now or talking about it. That was my coping mechanism. That was, it was so frightening to talk about the things that were potentially going on in my head. It was easier to close the blinds and stay isolated and deal with it how I thought was normal to deal with it.
Yep.
My world came to a crashing halt on June 26, 2001. So 2 years as of yesterday.
21, 2006, sorry. June 26,
June 26, 2021.
2021, okay.
Yeah, so 2 years as of yesterday. It all caught up to me. The kettle overboiled. As much as I pushed that stuff down for so long, it definitely all caught up to me. And, I was in a position where, I definitely made the decision to potentially take my life. I went as far as being outside my place of work and didn't have my access card to get into my job. I'd left it in my vehicle. And that for me was the deciding factor that it wasn't meant to be. That wasn't my journey. I made a decision right then and there. Well, if plan A isn't it, plan B, I got to talk to someone.
That's heavy. I mean, that's heavy.
I as I'm explaining to you, I still get goosebumps that, my mind took me to that place, and that was my answer.
So you were going back to the workplace, and you just didn't have your access card, and that was
it was after hours on a weekend type thing, and
yeah,
I was just, as we work in that culture, I was just, and especially with a little bit of rank behind my name, I was just so scared to talk about all the things that were going on in my head. For me, that not talking about it, not being there to talk about it was the answer, and I'm so thankful that it didn't pan out that way. And I made a call to my partner, and she picked me up, and she saw me sitting in a parking lot, just broken, and introduced me to some good people, and some people in a recovery program type thing. And I spoke to a good sergeant with Surrey RCMP, and he'd been through some stuff, and right away the issue came up. Well, like, have you spoken to anyone about, like, PTSD or PTS or a TBI, traumatic brain injury? And I was like, no, like, what are you talking about? And 4 minutes into that conversation, I was like, this is all making sense. He mentioned he had gone to treatment and stuff like that, and of course right away you're like, I'm not going there. I got 2 kids, I got life, I got stigma, I got all that. And honestly, Larry, when I hung up the phone with him, that's the first place I needed to call. Something clicked in me that this is what I need to do.
Wow. And then so from what happens from there?
Yeah, so obviously I reached out to my employer and just basically said, like, I'm struggling. I need to look after this. And when we finally get to that point where we can do that, the political red tape kind of jumps in a little bit. And again, in my department, we're quite a small department. Even though we're province wide, we're only about 500 members right now. So experience level around these things isn't that common. So they kind of put me, because we're a provincial government entity too, you kind of fallen under a different wing. Sheriffs kind of disassociate yourselves, and now you fall under kind of BC provincial occupational health stuff. And it was discouraging at first. The experience, the sensitivity around the whole thing, it was not there. They got me in to see a specialist, and within 7 minutes of seeing her, she's like, yeah, you've got complex PTSD.
Wow.
And that just kind of blew my mind, but kind of made sense.
Yeah.
A flood of emotion came with that, like relief, again, more scared. What do I do now? And
yeah, I get that, Brady.
Sorry, go ahead, yeah.
No, man. I'm just saying I get that, brother, because I mean, there's something that sits there that kind of goes, well, yeah. I mean, I know. So for me personally, right? Like, I don't know. There was a time when I probably hit the 6, 7, 8, 9 year mark. And I was like, well, yeah, everyone has PTSD, whatever, man. Like, I didn't think anything of it. Now, I really, looking back, didn't know much about it other than, well, I knew that shit stuck with you and it stayed. And so I continue on. And, I don't pay attention to the fact that I'm, year after year drinking more and more. that I'm year after year becoming more and more aggravated, more and more angry, less and less really wanting to do as told or follow what is required. And then when you get diagnosed, there's this one part, at least of me, that went, well, yeah. But there was this other part that just became this huge weight off my shoulders because, I don't know, man, with a diagnosis, at least it's something. And I don't know, I just seem to think that you've got at least a fighting chance to do something about it when you know what the hell's wrong with you. I mean, think of, I don't know, if you're snake bitten. I mean, if you never knew you were snake bitten and no one knows you're snake bitten, it's pretty goddamn hard to do something in time before you become, well, full of venom and croak. But the reality is, if you know, well, of course it sucks that you were snake bitten. However, okay, well, we can do something about it now. And so I guess what I'm trying to say in a very long, drawn out way, Brady, is that I get that it's kind of like, yeah, I get it. But it's also kind of like, holy shit. Oh, just something off you.
Yeah, it's exactly that. There is unfortunately so much stigma around labels in general. In our line of work, that label, and I fully admit I've done it in the past where, well, how could that person have that? They haven't had that hard of a career. And it's not about the events. It's not about specific incidents. It's about how your brain processes that. And, if anything I've learned along the way is just to be more generous with how people are feeling and be more open to it. Don't get me wrong. That took part of my journey. Obviously, I'll expand on that. Went to treatment. It took me how to learn that in treatment. Unfortunately, in BC, you don't get much financial support if you stay locally. So my option was to go to Homewood in Guelph, Ontario. And I went willingly, and I couldn't go fast enough. I've got a very supportive ex-wife who, was supportive of me going, and, I got the kids, you go deal with yourself and, come back a better person, hopefully. And that was my mentality. I was going to go to this program. I was going to take everything I could from it. Whether I liked it, didn't like it, this is a job I had to do. And, that's how I'll say, deal with most of our things in our workplace, right?
That's right, man. 100% that's right. And I have not been there, and I know I've heard other people that have attended. And so, there's undoubtedly a lot of listeners that are wondering, well, what goes on at these places? What is it like being at these places? How long are you there? Did you find it helped? I mean, tell us what life was like at Homewood.
Yeah, for sure. For me, it was a game changer. It was a lifesaver. And I understand people don't always have a positive interaction or as I do, and that's fair. But for me, and I'll just speak for me solely, that it was the best thing I could have ever done. I was in the Guardian program there, which is strictly for first responders and professionals alike. So you're in a room with already trusted people, relatable people. So the Guardian program is a 63-day program. You get into anything from, addiction to CBT or, cognitive behavioral therapy, DBT, and you really works through like some of your main traumas and help you understand why you're thinking about things a certain way. But the main thing about it is you just get to work on yourself. You have no other outside influences. Everything is provided for you for your personal care and comfort. And, as a 40, I would have been 43 when I went, year old man with kids, you don't take time for yourself. So in that regards, just to have those 63 days, I learned how to love again. I learned how to laugh again. I learned how to cry, to be honest with you. I don't think I've cried so much in 63 days than I have my entire life, but it is so therapeutic. It wasn't about going there and sharing war stories. That didn't happen. I won't say it didn't happen, but it wasn't the purpose of it. Everyone's very conscious about how people feel around certain scenarios, and you weren't there to talk about who had the bigger fish type thing. You're surrounded by your brothers and sisters who cared and created a bond in a safe environment to learn and grow.
Look, man, giving yourself time is huge. And that's the reality. And I think ultimately, as first responders, I mean, a lot of people do it, but it seems to be kind of a tragic flaw with first responders that our job is to put the safety of others before our own. And it becomes, again, just a life choice that we put people before ourselves. Now, don't get me wrong. I mean, anyone who's out here going, well, yeah, I love my kids and I put my kids before me. Absolutely. That's fantastic. That's great. But the problem here, and I'm guilty of it as well, is that we put so much time to everything else that we put none to us. And that becomes, I mean, in one way, obviously it becomes problematic. I'm just experiencing that over the past 6 months, being off work and now getting back to actually, having my own time to think, getting involved in meditation, yoga, exercising again, which is a huge difference. I didn't have time to do that before, man. The other side, I mean, it comes down to being sort of a coping mechanism that if you don't spend time on yourself, you're not living in your own head. And as long as I wasn't living in my own head, living amongst my thoughts and memories and experiences, I was doing okay. It was when I was in there that created issues for me. So it became an experience that, my kids would go to sleep, my wife would go to sleep, and I'd still be awake. And that became a very fucking bad thing for me because what am I doing? I'm spinning. The head's just thinking, man. I'm just thinking and I can't go to sleep and I don't want to go to sleep. And so what do I walk away from and learn from that? Nope. Stay busier with everyone else, man. Stay the hell out of your own way. Don't do that. Which, again, like a lot of coping mechanisms, becomes self-destructive.
For sure, yeah, and I definitely felt culprit to that. The busier I was, the downtime I didn't have to deal with, right? But when the downtime did kick in, I wasn't doing things healthy or appropriately to look after myself. And that's a long gist of it right there until those things poured out and I didn't have any other choice but to deal with them.
And I noticed that we're both donning some beautiful cracked armor gear today. Tell us about you met Mark, and I mean that's eventually how you and I managed to start talking, which I'm very glad. I mean, we're actually having this recording today, but you and I have been communicating via social media for a while, and it's been a pleasure to get to know you, Brady. I mean, you're solid, man. You're a solid guy. Tell us about meeting Mark there. Did you talk about cracked armor at all? What is that whole?
Sure. I actually was following Mark before all this hit the fan. Obviously, there were some precursors there that maybe I had some stuff, but I was following him on social media, and I was in Homewood, I think for about 2 or 3 weeks, and Mark had made a post about him coming to Homewood, being nervous and stuff like that. And at first I didn't know that that would have been Mark's second time coming to Homewood, and I kind of did the like, who am I to him, but I'm going to reach out to him and just say something. And so I just messaged him saying like, hey brother, I think you're making the right choice coming here. I'm here now. I've been here for a couple weeks. Here's my number, drop me a line if you want to, and we can chit chat. And, I think the next day he called me, and as we do, it was like an instant brotherhood, right? Like it was an instant feeling of like, I got you. This is where you need to come. If you think you need to come here, then you need to come here. And, I made sure that, I signed up, and we kind of had like a floor warden type thing when new people came in. And I made sure that, I was the first face he saw when he came through that door. And, I just really got to know him over the time I spent there, and, understood his story and understood his company, Cracked Armor, and, and the reasons for it and where it was going and his thoughts on it. And I just really became good friends with Mark, and obviously stay in touch with him often. And like you said, that's how he passed your name on to me. And, we've been having some great conversations as well. And the sad thing is like, this community is actually quite big. Yeah. And, if we can band together, hopefully we can make some impact on what's happening.
I agree. And it's things like this, talking about it and getting out, because I'm still active and you're still active, right? You're still a member. You're still in.
Correct. Yeah. So I was off work for just shy, I think it was like 3 days shy of a full year. And I went back, and to be honest, I think I went back probably a couple months too early.
Yeah.
I got back, and it was a rough patch to get back into, I'll say, society when
Yep.
you're in such a contained environment for that long. And then I came back and I was off work still for a bit. And then just most recently in April, I think I had to take some time away from workplace again. Some things crept up, but I'm good with that. Like I'm totally okay with my scars. I'm totally okay with my journey.
It's awesome, man.
It's gotten me here. I'm still employable. I still have a lot of good things to offer.
Absolutely.
You know, we've all made mistakes, and I'm speaking on my own terms here. These are my views, not my organizational views. And they've admitted too that they're learning as well. And it's okay to make some mistakes, and we can all grow from it. And fortunately, unfortunately, I've helped two of my brothers head to Homewood since I've been back that I work with, right? And if I'm the kind of the bridge to get them some help, then that's my position, and that's where I'll always be.
God love you, buddy, for that. I mean, so then for those who are listening that are kind of, what do I need to do to get there? What do I need to do to even consider Homewood? What's the process?
Yeah, like I said, if you're struggling, or you want information, then absolutely, on your own, reach out to them directly. They're very informative. I'm actually going to be doing some work with them coming up here as an alumni, trying to reach out to people potentially in the process, or people who are there already thinking of potentially leaving, or just kind of show them the life after Homewood. I would definitely,
friggin' cool.
yeah, I know. I'm actually quite excited about it. I would definitely surround yourself with trusted people. And that says volumes of being able to speak about things. Reach out to one of many of us who are open about talking about things, and we'll always point you in the right direction that we think we know best. If it's a work related thing, speak to your employer. Take the time. The job is always going to be there. I really learned how much of a number that I just am.
I know.
Right. And it's no disrespect to my organization or anything like that. It's just, that is law enforcement.
It's the reality of it, man. That's the reality of it. Yep. I just got an email last week, and it referred to just my last name and one of my numbers, that my series of numbers, not my reg, but a different one. Anyways, I signed it with just my last name and those numbers. If I'm gonna be that, then I'll be that.
Yeah, no, I hear you. I've recently, I got to give kudos to my department as well. They've let me have their ear. I'm trying to we don't have a wellness section in our whole department or our branch, and I'm trying to kind of be the spearhead poster boy for that, and get it implemented into policy, and create a whole wellness section that just looks after our members. That's kind of the niche I'm trying to pave the path for myself down there. And I'm thankful that they're open to those conversations, and it's gaining some traction with them. And I'm very happy that they're open to it.
I mean, that's fantastic that they are, and the fact that they can at least see and understand that there's an issue. Because I mean, just in this amount of time we've spoken to you, and we're talking about 2 years ago yesterday, and between yourself and, you said you had two other people that you've recommended attend Homewood. I mean, that's three people that needed to leave and have immense of 63 days of therapy in a quite an environment.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, yeah, there's an issue, and I'm not saying there's an issue with the BC sheriffs. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying the job itself has an issue. It comes with issues. It comes with things that stick and stay, and members need help. So, the members that are there doing the job now with X number of years, they need to be seen to. They need to be assisted. The other side of it, Brady, what I'd really like to hear from you is, the newbies, the rookies that are coming in. I know that when I went through, there was no training. There was nothing with regards to mental health, PTSD, nothing. And my whole time, I think the only thing we ever really did was the road to mental readiness, which to me was almost more like a litmus test, I guess.
Yeah,
if you're this right, if you're kind of this color, you probably you need to calm down. If you're that color, maybe you got to talk to someone. If you're that color, well, that's just fucking not good. But as opposed to, I guess what I'm asking you is, in your experience, what is it that not just BC sheriffs, but what is it that organizations, institutions, whatever, can start doing for the rookies, for the new ones yet even to join, to realize this is what comes with the job? And the job is not going to change. I mean, a new person comes in, it's not all of a sudden all the people they're dealing with are going to not do bad shit anymore or not do some things that are back in cells, right? But yeah, what do you think? What do you think has happened?
Perfectly. Like there's three aspects. You've got your newbies or your rookies coming in. You've got your mid-career guys, and then you've got your guys going into retirement. And all three need a different, somewhat tailored approach to how we talk about this. The 30-year guy who didn't have any of that in his career needs to help transition into retirement, right? Needs some help there, some people to work with him, how to process that, because it's retirement, you're giving up your identity, your job, but also it's dealing with all those years of what you may or may not have seen, right? But like you mentioned, back to the newbies, and that's part of the program that I'm trying to put together is, that's where the work starts. We got to stop triaging at the bottom of the waterfall, and we got to go upstream before all those people are going over the waterfall.
Agree 100%. Absolutely agree 100%.
So with the rookies and even their spouses or, their partners, have a little seminar, be aware your spouse or your partner or your son or your daughter is getting into this line of work. These are some things that also you could look for as well. And it's tailored to like everyone in that person's community, let's say, right? Like their family, their friends. It can't just be put on the individual to recognize himself. There has to be resources out there. There has to be ongoing talks. There has to be a group. There has to be, so many things, because if we leave it up to ourselves, we know how that works, right?
Well, it's not going to work well. I mean, ultimately, and people who've heard all the episodes of the podcast, I don't mean to repeat myself on certain things, but it's hard not to say there's no damn way that I was ever stepping out anywhere, because I was fearful of job repercussions. I was fearful that I was going to be, I don't know, man, a person that packs kit into boxes and stores it somewhere or ships it off, that my days of really being a police officer, having my pistol, going out and doing the work for which I was trained and for which I joined, was done. And so it was, to me, very much like, well, why the fuck would I ever do that? There's not a chance I'm talking about this. I'll deal with this after I'm done, when they can't do anything to me anymore. Yeah. But dude, that shit catches up with you. That's not a good idea.
That line right there, when I'll deal with it kind of later in my career or when I'm done, that was my mentality. If I could keep it together through all this, I'll deal with it after. And as I've just shared, that wasn't the path that I was put on. I had to deal with it a lot sooner. And honestly, I'm so thankful I have. And don't get me wrong, I have shit days. There are days that are not good. But I've learned better ways to deal with that. And, part of that is being open and communicating. And that's with my family, with my partner. My partner's in a first responder line as well. She's a psychiatric nurse that rides with an RCMP member. So there's an understanding there of what we go through, but we don't talk war stories. We don't talk this. We just do check-ins on how things going. Like, what can I do for you? What can I get for you? And they're open, real conversations. If I'm having a crap day, I'm going to tell you I'm having a crap day. I'm not going to lie and say, I'm fine. I got this.
Well, that to me is the catchphrase. I mean, that's kind of the whole, I mean, if I ask, a colleague, how are you doing? And they go, I'm fine. I'm like, you lying bastard. You're not.
You're lying to me. Yeah.
There's not a chance. You're lying.
It's funny, we all say it, and I don't know where we learned it, but we all learned
Yeah,
it from the same school, right?
absolutely, man. I don't know if it was like in bubblegum comics when we were young or something, but that's just what you're supposed to say is I'm fine. I'm good. Things are good. Absolutely fine. Meanwhile, they're fucking horrible and they're shit, but no, I'm good. I'm fine.
Well, even when you're saying it, you're just like, for some days for me, it was even hard to like be good with myself saying that because I know damn well I wasn't fine.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, if you're good and someone asks how you're doing, I don't know, like a typical response is, you know what, man, I'm doing real good. Things are going great. All right, I believe it. But if you respond and say, I'm good, well, you don't sound good, right?
Yeah.
You don't sound good. Brady, tell us about, a big thing with regards to PTSD and one of the realities of how it is this, and I, at times refer to it as kind of a demon, how it is, it all of a sudden manages to sink its grips into you, is the failure to process traumatic experiences, the failure to process memories. Is that something you learn to do at Homewood? And if so, how do you find now you're able to process things? Because again, if you're back to work, you are once again back to experiencing traumatic events.
Yeah, there's no rest for the wicked. I think day 3 after a year off, I had another quite serious event happen, and that's just the reality of the job. Um, yeah, like I definitely learned those skills at Homewood, but it's also the upkeep of, who I'm speaking to. I've got a good team, I'll say, of doctors and such like people around me. But it's learning how to take the time to process it and right time to process it. So when you just had, let's say, it might even be a minor event, doesn't have to be a major event, immediately after, probably for me isn't the best time to process that. Because I know where my brain goes, how are my employees? How is this? What did I do for that? So I let that happen, and then I make sure I take time for myself. And whether that's at work still or an hour when I come home, and I just, the typical shower the gunk off you and just go chill out for a little bit or have a meditation. If it's real bad, honestly, I work through some of the CBT. We get worksheets for that. And the worksheets help my brain process it because it doesn't want to, so to speak, right?
So for people who are, I should rephrase that, and that will be edited, so no worries. For people who have not yet reached out for any professional help, and I've been in conversation with an individual for the past few days who's a combat veteran or an Army veteran, and 25 years in, and realizes now there's some issues. There's no doubt there's issues, and hasn't yet spoken with anyone, but is being sent now, I believe, maybe even today, to speak to a psychologist or psychiatrist, and is very, very anxious about it because, well, for a number of reasons. Because what would you say to people who are at this point refusing or just completely and utterly uneasy, uncomfortable with talking to a therapist, talking to someone who can do more than listen, who can go through, as you just mentioned, the cognitive behavior therapy?
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, I was definitely on the other side of the fence when it first started as well, right? And those people, I would imagine, had the same thoughts I have, like, why would I tell this person? They have no relation to me. They won't understand. What's the repercussions for my work or my unit if you're, in the military or something like that? In order for any of it to work, Larry, at some point you do have to buy in and trust some sort of process. That is finding someone you're comfortable with, though. I definitely, it's not like it was almost like garage sale shopping for therapists, right? I definitely went to a few and I just didn't have a connection. And, I was quite open with them about that like, I'm going to have to end this because I'm sorry, I just don't. It wasn't a trust thing. It's just, the feeling you get if it's not there. I can't be totally honest with this person. And, and I've been fortunate to find someone who works strictly with first responders. And I think that's the key, is everything we do, someone needs to have either experience or lived experience doing what we do. That's my personal view on it. That's my, that's my reason for kind of putting my neck out there a little bit with my department as well, and being, let's say, the poster boy for people to come to. I don't have all the answers, but this is what worked for me, and I'll help you do what I like. I'll do whatever I can to get you where you need to go.
Listen, truth. And hallelujah to that, buddy, because that's exactly what it is no, man, I don't have all the answers. As a matter of fact, I'm still working through them, and I expect to for the remainder of my days here. But, what I've done so far has certainly gotten me better days than what I've had in quite a while, and it may help people too. The other side of it too, Brady, is, if you continue to do the same thing over and over and expect different results, well, that's pretty much, I don't know, failure, wasting your time.
Definition of insanity.
Insanity. Yeah. Like, it's just right. Like and that's kind of the message, I guess, to get out to people is, if what you're doing has not worked, you really need to start thinking about something else, which may include speaking to a therapist, which may include going to a retreat, which may include going to a therapy center such as Homewood, getting more involved with peer support, speaking out like I'm doing here, just talking about it, just unloading the burden, the stigma that you're putting on yourself. As much as we all talk about there's a lot of stigmatization, a lot of that is coming from within ourselves because of how, we have seen people who struggled before, and we're afraid that those labels are going to be put on us. It just needs to be, I don't know, man, in my opinion, it just needs to be taken and burned and be done with, and be okay that it's no different than, I don't know, if you were playing rugby and broke your arm. Yeah, it's an injury. It's part of the game of rugby. You play football and you get concussed. That's part of the game. It happens. And if you're doing, if you're involved in military work, you're involved in first responder work, then having some traumatic incidences, traumatic experiences that are going to stick around is a result or a part of that job. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I know. I definitely agree. And it's kind of the saying, if nothing changes, nothing changes. And what that path would look for each individual is obviously different. You've listed all the different avenues it could go, and it might lead to going to a treatment center. It might lead to just speaking to someone. It might lead to peer support groups. But it's something. We need to get out of self, and we tried with self. We tried to fix it ourselves. And, if you find yourself struggling or drowning a little bit in it, then we need to get out of self and we need to ask for help. And we need to make that transition of asking for help more common. We need to make that more accepted. Like, you're exactly right. Just because we can't see the injury doesn't mean it's not there.
Absolutely. And we just need to get out of our own way at times. And, I always give huge gratitude and thanks for those who are listening to the podcast, because that's a huge step. Just the fact that you're willing to listen about this, then you're either affected by it directly or someone who you love is affected by this. And that's a great first step, is to hear what other people are saying about it, to know, here you go. You've got a staff sergeant in the BC Sheriffs in British Columbia, in what is one of, and at times the busiest courthouse in the country, who is right now sitting down at his home and speaking openly about this. That's a big deal. And this is not a member that's got 6 months service or a year and is kind of going, you know what, screw this. I'm going to leave anyway soon. It's a temporary gig. Or a person who's necessarily planning on retiring next week. Yeah, this is a big thing, Brady, and this is what everyone needs to realize, that it's okay to talk about it. And the only way we're going to get away from, I guess, the entire concept of silence with regards to mental health injuries is to continually breach the silence.
I think if you like exactly that, if we talk and we talk and we talk, it becomes the norm, right? So then we change that pattern of how we deal with it, and it's never going to go away. It's always going to be there. So my thought process is, why not talk about it? And as we get in our careers, we definitely need to, and I say this to my brothers and sisters, we need to stop comparing trauma. We need to accept certain people deal with certain things differently. Certain people process it differently. Certain people's road to recovery is different. We just need to accept all of that and not try and prioritize which one would mean more or mean less. And if we can do that for our brothers and sisters, I think that's a huge step.
Couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more. And the other thing people need to realize as well, I think, Brady, is that it's not your fault. And I say that because I was much more comfortable with the situation, with the diagnosis, when I believed it was my fault, because at that point I still had control. I maintained control. There are things that I had done and there are things that I can do to fix this, to undo this. And the reality is, no, you don't have control over this. These are things that happened. It wasn't your fault. It happened. You experienced it. And I know people of our generation, of our age, hey man, like, we didn't have any other way to talk about this, to deal with this, to know anything about this. And this is what happened. This is not me saying that I'm a victim or you're a victim. Not any way, shape, or form. This is me saying, no, it's me saying that you have to accept that you don't control everything. And Brady, I mean, as a first responder, as a BC sheriff, when you control a situation, well, you're safe. You've now made it safe because you're in control. Personally, when I'm not in control, that becomes a point of discomfort for me because my safety is now in jeopardy. When I control it, I'm back, I'm driving, I've got the throttle, it's all in my hands, I'm good. Well, when it comes to CPTSD, PTSD, TBI, major depressive disorder, dissociation, anxiety, these things are not in your control. I mean, what's now in your control is your ability to heal. But what got you here, you need to let that go. That was not your fault. You unfortunately do not control that. And you have to accept that, yeah, it happened. And you couldn't change it.
That's we talk about being comfortable with your scars, right? And that's exactly what we mean by our scars. Is it sounds like I'm not trying to discredit any of it, but what's done is done. I can sit in it, and I know where that road would have taken me. Now that I've had some people around me and I've been able to kind of step out of the trench a little bit, I want to continue doing that. I want to put my best foot forward every day. It takes work. It's nonstop. I'll be the first one to say, today I don't want to put the work in, but I know where that gets me if I don't put the work in. Right? We have the peaks and the valleys, and we got to stay in the middle of there as best we can. But it does take work. But I'll be the first one to say it's rewarding work.
And it's scary too, right? I mean,
for sure, absolutely.
It's terrifying, right? Like, I know when I step back, I mean, first going and speaking to someone, terrifying. I was, again, just like you said, angry. Why am I talking to a person who's never walked a day in my shoes? A person who does not really get what I'm saying? No. You manage to get over that hump. Then it comes down to, getting to a point where you need to step back from work and you're not in a healthy place. That's terrifying. It's scary. Trying to progress is scary. Trying to step out of your comfort zone is scary. And I would really like you to speak to this briefly, is I have not yet done the return to work thing. I don't know if I am. I'm not sure. But you have, and you mentioned even after a year, you went back a little shy. What was it that made you feel you were ready to go back, that had you stick it out? Because, I mean, a common thing as well that I hear frequently is members of sheriffs, firefighters, whatever, go back, and shortly thereafter they're off again because they really did it too quickly. I mean, I guess what I'm asking, Brady, is what helped you make the decision go back, and what has helped you stay back?
Yeah, decision to go back, obviously, for myself, I got into this career because I love it. That was part of the leading force to go back. Now, having said that, I wanted to go back, but I didn't know if I was staying back. And I was okay with, if things were presented to me that I wasn't able to do it anymore, then I'd step away from it. And I was comfortable with that, and I'm still okay with that day may present itself one day, but I don't know if I don't try. And that's kind of how I look at it. I was back almost a year, I think, again, and I was off for about 15 days. And I've had quite candid conversations with my managers and such, that I want to be at work, but if I can't be at work, this is why I can't be at work. He's working quite well with me in regards to that. And that's just the reality of it, that if I'm not sound to be there, I'm not going to be there, and I'm not going to pretend I am anymore, because it puts myself into jeopardy. It puts my coworkers into jeopardy.
Well said. Well said. I love it. I love the concept as well, that what am I going to know if I don't try? I have to try. Listen, brother, I'm looking at the time here, and I could speak to you for a while. There's no doubt about that. However, I know you are busy. It has taken us a while even to make time to get this done today. Before we go, is there anything else that you would like to add? Anything else you would like to say? The floor is completely yours.
Yeah, I'll say to anyone who's listening and on the fence, or started looking into potential people to talk to, that if you're thinking it, take the step. If you're on the fence thing, and I might have some of these things, or some of these things are happening to me, reach out. You've got individuals on this podcast, even if it's from a keyboard and you're not quite comfortable putting your face to that yet, fire me a text or a DM, or Larry yourself, reach out to us if that's what it takes. But if you're thinking it, it means you need to do something about it.
Well said, brother. Well said. And for everyone out there, I mean, think about this. This is Staff Sergeant Hoffman, BC Sheriffs, lots of years of service, and knew when it was time to step back, and very quickly realized he needed to go somewhere to get help, that it needed to be more than him just taking care of things at home. It's taken a lot of work. As much as he's done 63 days in Guelph, he also took that time to make some friends, to make some contacts, to keep the worksheets that he learned, and to continue using them and learning from them, because he's aware that this is an injury that can certainly be healed, but will remain with scars. And that's okay. It's totally okay. You just need to get yourself up and keep moving, keep pushing forward, no matter what. And you can hear from Brady today, no matter what, as difficult as it is and as much pain as you're going through, and I fucking understand you just want the pain to stop, there will come a better time.
And it will stop, Larry. It will stop.
It will stop. There you go. It will stop. Thank you very much for listening. My name is Larry Payton. I have your 6. Please have mine.
Don't go away. There's so much left to do, so many things I wanna say, and I say, don't make the change. If it rains every single day, I'll fight to blow it